to lose your temper. It's not useful. I mean, I'm boiling inside. I'm a very emotional person, way too much. So it's not like it's not stressful. It's unbelievably stressful, but I can detach myself from that to some degree. And I'm really curious. I suppose that's another part of it. I like to watch. And when people really go after me, this is where the clinical practice is handy.
Welcome to the Mindset by Design podcast with your host and NLP expert, Andy Murphy, where you will learn the tips, tricks, and strategies he teaches his world-class clients to give you the skills to dominate any business.
What's going on, Mindset by Design crew, and welcome to episode 405. Hope you're amazing as always and life is treating you beautiful, especially as we're booming away this year, right? What are we on the 15th of March today? Crazy. We got banks closing down all over the place. The world's going in chaos, but hey, doesn't matter. You can just tune in, come and hang out with me, relax, and really start thinking a different way. You know, that's what this show's all about. And if you're new to Mindset by Design, then welcome. Always awesome to have a new listener. Make sure that you're subscribing, reviewing, and sharing this with somebody. What we're here about at Mindset by Design is about building new behaviors, new ways of thinking, feeling, and acting using the conscious, unconscious mind, NLP, which I'm a world-class expert at, behavioral psychology, neuroscience, influence and persuasion, and 21 years of experience from me working with some of the best in the world. And my whole point to this podcast is I just want to help you. That's all I want to do. Whether you've got an idea to start a business, whether you just want some inspiration of life, or you are running $100, $200 million business as a founder and just want to be in your best performance. It doesn't really matter. I've worked with them all, helped them all, and I'm here to help you. Like it? Thought you might like that. If you're a regular listener, I don't always tell what this podcast is about, but you know, sometimes you got to do it. And hopefully you've been enjoying all of the different episodes. If you haven't gone back and you haven't listened to the past 5, you probably want to. We've had some epic episodes and so much good feedback. So many people loving the podcast. It's actually grown quite a lot over the past 6 months. So, hey, whatever I'm doing, you obviously seem to be happy and liking it. So today's episode, it's an interesting one. Jordan Peterson. I'm using a clip about Jordan, and he was on the Tim Ferris podcast, which is actually, I don't need to explain either of these guys, do I? Do I need to explain how badass Jordan Peterson is? You might love him, you might hate him. A lot of people hate him. But either way, he's a hyper intelligent, he's got massive opinions and been a clinical psychologist for about 20,000 years or something or other, you know? And Tim Ferris, Tim Ferris is Tim Ferris, a tech and productivity genius. And it's interesting. Did you ever see the blogs, the articles, I suppose, of back in the day, like maybe 10 years ago plus, when Tim Ferris used to do experiments? Have you ever seen those? They're really, really cool. He hacked how to learn a language, how to do this Japanese type jousting, how he did so many crazy, even learning to swim. I'm not the best swimmer. I never got taught, I got taught martial arts and how to fight, but I never got taught real swimming. Although I live in hot countries all around the world, swimming still isn't my best thing, but I'm obsessed with the ocean and water. So, hey, what are you going to do? Paradox there, right? But we'll get to it. But Jordan is a really interesting little clip that I'm going to break down today. It's really cool because it's talking about how he personally manages emotion. And as you saw from that, or heard, I should say, by the way, videos are coming. We've got loads of interviews. I'm actually doing 3 tomorrow for guests that are coming on, and I'm moving this into a video format. And I'm actually creating a podcast studio. So you're going to see all of this all over YouTube and all over social media and stuff. So that's kind of cool. I'm excited about that. Back to Jordan. Jordan, it's interesting, right? Because he said he didn't react externally, but internally he was still having the emotional reaction, right? So it's an interesting point that we're going to get into today, because I feel that the way he deals with stuff is very, very interesting. I'm going to give my opinion on this from my standpoint and my experience. And I want you to really think about things in your own life during this episode. If someone's annoying you right now, if you're stuck in a business situation and you're getting frustrated, if you find yourself taking it out on your family and friends and you have this inner boiling frustration, we're going to talk about how to get rid of all of that today and really be in emotional and mental mastery, which is what I'm all about. Sound good? Excited? You should be excited. It's going to be a goodie. Let's do some business. 2 sponsors. Hey, we brought them on last week and it's nice and easy for you. And hopefully you're clicking on the links someone actually said to me, Rob, shouts out to Rob. He actually messaged me. He goes, I've been looking everywhere for these show notes. Am I calling them wrong? The show description, the links, when you click on the podcast and go deeper into it and you've got all these different links, go and find them. These are the links I'm talking about. So Rob, hopefully you get them, mate. Hopefully you get them. First sponsor, you definitely need to go and check these out. I was using this product yesterday and had the most badass productive day. I love them. It's my friend's company, Matt Gallant, who is in the Inc. 500 for this company. It's Nootropia. These are by far the world's best nootropics. If you don't know what nootropics are, they're like protein for the brain. They fire neurotransmitters, and Matt's whole thing behind Nootropia is for anyone to be able to control their state or their version of them, no matter how they're feeling. I think that's absolutely beneficial, and it's very important, whether I'm going onto stage or I'm getting interviewed or I'm interviewing or I'm getting creative or I just want to calm myself down. There's nootropics for each one of these, and you can combine them, blend them, and genuinely the best in the world by far. So make sure that you go and click on the links so you can get a beautiful offer for using them. So go there, Nootropia, best nootropics in the world. Number 2, speaking about the best in the world, if you are at any level doing business, you might have an idea, you might already be doing millions of dollars, then what you need is the 8-Figure Thinker Peak Performance University. The Peak Performance University is something very special. It's 21 years of knowledge that I've taken. The best bits from NLP, neuroscience, behavioral psychology, influence, persuasion, and sales, and I take you on a journey to build you into the ultimate entrepreneur. It's so in-depth, it's so incredible. We even got hypnosis, everything in there to drop your brainwaves into trance, to install and update the internal automatic software. There's so many awesome things in there, and another awesome feature of it is, it's a full neuroscience, NLP, and peak performance certification all the way through it. And it is a complex certification, not like these $7 BS ones that are out there. If you complete this, I'm going to do a video with you personally and make sure you get your certificate. So all of that's there. It's on a massive sale price right now. Why? Because it's been my birthday, you know what I mean? So I'm giving the love. So go and check that out right now. You can go to andymurphy.online or you can go to 8figurethinker.com. 8figurethinker.com or andymurphy.online. Should be going to andymurphy.online for all the latest and greatest. And what else? If you are kicking ass in business right now and you want to take your business to the next level, do you know what? I haven't done this in a while, but yeah, I have one space open for private coaching. It's not for everybody. It's absolutely not for everybody. But if you are an e-commerce brand or a digital brand right now and you want to expand into the 6, 7, 8 figures, then you need to have a little chat with me. Head over to andymurphy.online, fill the application in, and let's just have a chat. Got one space open and it could be for you. So if you want to add an extra 1 million or 100 million to your business, then let's connect. So find the links, obviously not the show notes, whatever they're called, but find the links in the podcast description and find which one is right for you. Until then, I'll see you at the end of the show. Let's go and hang out with Jordan and Tim.
How do you cultivate or suggest people cultivate? You can tackle either both the ability to keep yourself in check or under control and to be courageous. And just to provide a little context for the question, when I see you in the many interviews that you've done, there are instances where people are very adversarial and aggressive. And one thing that has struck me is your ability to maintain composure while still standing up for and not rolling over with respect to your arguments or your positions. How do you cultivate that, or how have you cultivated that?
Well, I have an advantage, I suppose, in that I'm a clinical psychologist and I've spent $20,000, although I'm not practicing anymore. I've spent $20,000 listening to people and maintaining my composure, sometimes under very stressful circumstances. And so I've had a lot of practice doing that. And then I did do some TV work at a local station here for a couple of years. And I had a good producer, and he helped me realize that anger plays very badly in a public forum like video, and particularly. Now, I didn't have a tendency then, I suppose, to fly off the handle either, but it's not useful to lose your temper. It's not useful. I mean, I'm boiling inside. I'm a very emotional person, way too much. So it's not like it's not stressful. It's unbelievably stressful, but I can detach myself from that to some degree. And I'm really curious. I suppose that's another part of it. I like to watch. And when people really go after me, this is where the clinical practice is handy. I can snap into a different mode, which is, okay, I don't know what you're up to, so I'm just going to watch you. And then I'm going to figure out what you're up to, because I can usually figure out what people are up to.
Okay, crew, let me jump in there. Very interesting, right? Very interesting what he's talking about. First of all, it all comes from experience, right? He's talking about he's got 20,000 hours as a clinical psychiatrist and also experience on a TV show, right? So it's really interesting, but really it's like a poker face. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that the nervousness, the emotion isn't boiling, as he used that word, inside, but being able to keep that demeanor gives you power. And that's what I want you to think about in sales, in a negotiation, in meeting people, in life. Can you keep that poker face? I don't know. Is there something that you're reacting to right now that you're just spilling it everywhere, all over social media, all over your friends, right? And there's a part of you, by expressing it that way, I understand, right? We talk about the neuroscience behind this, and the expression and the awareness behind it means that then you can change the habit, right? Which is cool, or the behavior, which is cool, but also it gives away your power. And what do I mean by that? if there's any Chinese here, if there's any Chinese listening to this, and hopefully there is, I'm actually going to look on the stats to see if if this is listened to over there. Probably not. Probably not. But maybe. And what you like, let me know on social media, let me know in the comments, let me know somewhere, right? The Chinese culture, what they're very talented at is being able to not give all of their cards away. So Americans, for example, are very expressive. They're like very loud, right? But this in business is the opposite of what that culture does. What they do is allow people to tell them everything, and then they analyze, they sit back. So look at it a different way. Like in a think about it like this, a business meeting, right? In the Western culture, or the American culture especially, definitely the UK culture too, look at the royalty, right, and all the rest of it, big chair. But the boss, or the highest powered person, sits in the biggest chair. They will be generally the noisiest, and everyone else will pay attention to them. Well, in the Asian culture, especially Chinese, it's very, very different. The person with the power is generally quiet. Why? Because they're reading every individual, they're reading the scenario, they're reading the situation. So they're gathering information, they're gathering knowledge, right? Intel. Think about this. So how are you doing that? Or should you be doing that more in your life, in your journey, in your career, in your business? Even if we go down to coaching or management, right? Or being a founder of a business, or you're in a negotiation for a takeover, or you are, you get the idea, right? Even when you're managing people, it's the same thing. Now, as a salesperson, for example, a lot of salespeople, they want to tell the buyer or the client or the potential client everything that their belief system is. So if they give everything over to that client, then with their own personal belief system, then what it means is that then that client is of course going to buy. It doesn't work like that, right? So everyone buys because they have their own internal representational system of the world, right? So they all have their own internal drivers and motivators. And when we can observe those, we can learn a lot about their model of reality. So if we can understand their model of reality, what it means is then we can, in a coaching aspect, we can help them, right? In a negotiation or management, we can actually help them. In a sale, we can help the client make a decision to buy. So what that means is then you've got to really, instead of that initial reaction, what you've got to do is interrupt that pattern, catch it. Instead of allowing that emotion to just overspill, you again interrupt that pattern, hold it back, so you can be in control of that emotion, which gives you the power to be able to gather the relevant knowledge that you need to be able to make a decision next and decide which path you want to take that person in front of you down, or the business, or you get the idea.
If I want to, I don't do that all the time, because I actually don't want to know sometimes what they're up to. I mean, look, lots of people have treated me extraordinarily well, don't get me wrong. But and normally, you know, when you talk to someone, you accept their persona. You don't look behind. But if people mistreat me in some way, or become adversarial, then I'm able to look behind the scene and think and see what they're up to, if I can remember to do that.
Do you look behind the mask, or see what is behind by deducing where they're trying to where they're trying to lead you with the breadcrumbs? I mean, I've seen you do that very effectively.
Yeah, that's part of it.
What other forms does that take, or might that take?
It's really hard to describe. I guess I think it's useful to draw a distinction between thinking and paying attention. if you're thinking, you're kind of walking down a programmatic trail. If you're paying attention, you just open your eyes and let your mind go where it will, and ideas will occur to you. They'll pop up in your field of consciousness. And for me, that's often informative. I'll get insight that way. I suppose I'm paying more attention to nonverbal communication and to facial expression and posture and tone of voice, and I can pick up patterns, I suppose.
So let's take a look at that. I love what he's saying, and you can be used in so many contexts in life, even in relationships, communication. Again, we go back to sales, we go back to team building, we go back to founders, understanding the culture of their company, or their management, or even themselves. The most important thing is you got to know yourself, right? But then it's keeping that power, and power is like it's kind of a bad word these days, but power is not a bad word, It's only a bad word if you're coming from a bad place. Power means personal power. That's strength. That's inner confidence. That's inner knowing, right? And what he's talking about, which I love, is thinking versus, well, basically paying attention, what he's saying. But paying attention to me is presence. So presence, if you're in front of somebody or a situation and you're thinking about the future and the past, then you're not in the place of you can observe. You can't have that observation over what is in front of you, right? Again, this could be a partner. It could be anything, And as an entrepreneur, we have to navigate so many different areas of business and life. It's kind of mind-blowing. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of mind-blowing when I look at billionaires or when I'm working with this level of people. It's kind of mind-blowing because they are often kind of cerebral, but they have an infinite fuel tank, right? And they read the situations of everything and they take really fast action on stuff. But what he's talking about there is being able to read people and being present, and you being present allows these ideas, these thoughts, these perspectives to just appear like magic. But they don't just really appear like magic, right? We could call them instinct. We could call them intuition. But if we call them instinct, then that means what you're doing is really allowing the unconscious mind to do its job. And what its job is to keep you safe. So when you have these spidey senses, when you're in front of people, these spidey senses are designed to... Spidey sense is an interesting word, but you know what I mean, right? These spidey senses allow you to make sure that you are safe. We all know what it's like when everyone's hanging out and that new person just appears and everyone's like trying to analyze them and work them out and read them and say things to see what their beliefs are or their attitudes are about different circumstances. So we do that in a personal context. We do that in a way that we're trying to, are these people harmonizing with us in a vibrational way, in a conscious way? Or do they have the same or a similar belief system as the group, right? Or if you're coming from the dynamics of a company, does this person have the right model of reality or belief system and values of the team or the culture or the founder or the vision that they're going to go into, right? Or that's being led by the founder. And so what this means is then you can start to analyze and read the situation, the tonality of people's voices, the pace, the pitch, the timbre. You can start to read the micro muscles on their face. All of these skills are high-level skills. What I call them is subliminal, right? Subliminal communication, higher level communication. And when we can start playing at that level, which most people do not play at that level, but as a founder or a business leader, you must learn how to master or play at that level. Does that make sense?
You mentioned earlier that at times you're boiling inside. I certainly have experienced that personally. Now, anger, how would you distinguish, and I sort of intuitively know these are different, but I would struggle to maybe on the spot separate the two, anger and resentment, because one of your quotes that I have here in front of me with my notes is consult your resentment. It is revelatory. And I'd love to unpack that. But if you could walk us through.
Yeah, well, in my new book, I have a chapter, which is Rule 11. Do not allow yourself to become resentful, deceitful, or arrogant. It's kind of the evil triad as far as I've been able to determine. Resentment in particular. It's bad. It's a bad emotion. It's useful. You can learn a lot by noticing that it occurs. Resentment tells you one of two things. One is that that someone's treading on your territory and something needs to be done about it, or that you need to grow the hell up and stop complaining. And it's hard. It isn't necessarily obvious when you feel resentful which of those it is. But you need to figure it out, because you can harbor resentment for unlived life for very, very long period of time. And all it does is corrupt you. It hurts you. It hurts you physically because it's a stressful emotion. Anger is a stressful emotion. Because your body hyper prepares for action if you're angry, because you might get into conflict. And that's a dangerous situation. And so you burn off a lot of psychophysiological resources in anger. If you're resentful, there's probably something you need to say. There's certainly something you need to figure out. And so you can use it as a guide to further development. It's very much useful to aim at a resentment-free existence. And that means, I suppose, that you're taking up enough space. There's always a struggle between your domain and the domain of other people. Everyone competes for everyone else's attention. Everyone competes for everyone else's time. You compete for your own time. And if you're resentful, it's highly probable that, well, as I said, either you're not standing up for yourself sufficiently, or someone is legitimately on your case, in which case you need to do something about that, or live with the consequences, which is very unpleasant. It's not optimal. Sometimes I suppose it's unavoidable, but generally there's something that can be done about it. Maybe you need a new job.
That's an interesting topic, right? That's a very interesting topic, because what we're taught in general is that emotions or anger and resentment, anger is kind of an immediate thing. Resentment is a long harboring thing, right? It didn't actually say it in that clip, but that's what I'm mind reading about what his internal representation of that word, right? So what that means is then the emotion can be used in different perspectives. It doesn't have to be used in a negative way, something that will hold us back, something that will damage us, right? Now, what he's talking about resentment long term, absolutely, because it's a stress hormone, and we all know about stress hormones. If that production of that stress hormone is over a long period of time, then it actually damages the hormone production, the cells. It damages us, literally damages us, I know this more than anyone, maybe not more than anybody, right? But I know this. Why? Because in my mid-20s, I was top performer in 2 different countries in investment, real estate, and sales, and I was teaching departments and doing everything. And then you probably know my story, right? But then I was building a development company to build a resort in Fiji. That's what we were doing. We took it over to Dubai. We were selling it down next to the Palms. It's all of this stuff over in Dubai. We brought it back. business partner stole all my money, sent me into bankruptcy, nervous breakdown, right? And I lost a lot of hair in an 8-month period. I basically destroyed myself in a year or two. Why? Because it was a constant level of stress. I got in a lot of debt. It was family members' money that invested in the company. The guy will never know the damage that he did to me, right? But again, we learn. We take responsibilities. When I look back, I was young, manipulated by somebody. And again, it teaches us our own ethics, it teaches us our own values, and it's why one of the big reasons that I do what I do, you know what I mean? To help people not go through that pain and learn a lesson in a different way. So what he's talking about there is resentment. Well, I could hold on to the resentment of that guy, and I did for a long time. And it definitely held me back in life, although I did pretty good, but it still held me back in life. And what that is, that resentment is ego. And that resentment is ego, but understand ego from the context I'm speaking about it. Probably not the context that as a clinical psychiatrist or psychologist would speak about ego, right? I don't believe that personally there should be a healthy ego. I believe that we should be passionately driven forwards, not ego pulling us forwards. But that's a different thing. Every time the way I teach ego is more from an Eastern philosophy aspect, and I believe this to be true. My reality, right? So ego always comes from insecurity. It always comes from self-doubt if we deep dive into it. We could also contextualize that as it's a defense mechanism, right? Again, what's the unconscious mind, right? To protect us. That's a default setting. So ego it can be part of that, or is a separate part of us, but it's basically designed to keep us safe. So whether that's expressing it in the bling bling, or it's going into self-pity, which is resentment, the truth behind it is it's always to do with lack and self-worth. And that's just the truth, man. I don't care. I'll argue with this against anyone on the planet, right? And is ego effective? That's a different topic. Is ego effective in business and martial arts? Sure. Is it? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. Is ego effective as a human being, as a soul? No, it's not. We're supposed to transcend and move past it. But that's a whole different topic, man. That's a whole different topic. But if we want to understand that the resentment, then we can pull it into two categories like he's talking about. We can pull it into, hey, you know what I mean? This person is going to cause me some shit. They're pushing on my boundary of what I determine my life to be. Now, that could be like they're doing it for the right reason, or they're doing it for the wrong reason. Your partner, your loved one, for example, if they love you so much, then they could be pushing you and pressing, like poking you, you know what I mean? Because they see that you're not living in alignment to your true potential, right? They see that you're limiting, not expanding. They see that you're not being authentically you, and you're limiting yourself. Does that make sense? So when we understand that, then the opposite way is to change that behavior. But without the awareness, we cannot do it. Does that make sense? Hope so.
It's easy for people to think that they're better than they are. And it's not surprising that everybody wants to think that. I probably want to think that about me. So then you'll get angry about something. You know, maybe your partner puts you down in public, doesn't show you the respect. Maybe you're married, say, and husband and wife owe each other a certain amount of categorical respect, sort of independent of the individual personalities. You know, if you have decided that you're going to devote your life to someone and vice versa, they're now in a category that requires a certain amount of respect to maintain the relationship over time. it's good for your partner and it's also good for you. Maybe you've taken a shot in public and you're really angry about it, but you don't notice it because you want to think that you're better than you are. That sort of thing doesn't upset you. And so you don't say anything about it. You don't do anything about it. And then you don't fix it. And that's a mistake. It's much better. You could say to your partner, look, we were out for dinner tonight and you said something snarky, which I didn't think was appropriate. Now, I might be hypersensitive and touchy and immature, and maybe you hit me in a weak spot, or maybe you're playing some power game. Why don't we figure that out? Now, that's messy. People don't like conversations like that. And I think that's one of the things that's peculiar about me. For one, I don't know why exactly, but I don't like that. I won't let those things go.
So the peculiarity is that you'll open those conversations. You don't have an aversion to it.
Well, I have a horrible aversion to it, and I don't like conflict. But I've learned, and this is partly, I suppose, clinical training, but it's not just that. Some things, if you don't address them, they just get worse. And I've been able to see where things are going to go. It's kind of like what I mentioned to you earlier, that if I watch someone, I can generally figure out what they're up to. I also can see where things are going. And so, if I walk into someone's house and there are things out of order in a particular way, if I pay attention to that, that's often indicative of something not right in the relationship. Maybe the kitchen's a mess. It's like there's food that isn't fresh in the fridge, for example, or there's packages up in shelves that haven't been opened for like 2 years, or since the wedding, let's say. That's too much chaos in the kitchen. Something's wrong. Well, what's wrong? Well, there's something wrong in the domestic relationship there. The bargaining about who does what in the kitchen hasn't been fought through. And so you have to have those fights to put things in order. And if you don't, then you end up with a worse fight in the future. And so the reason that I call things out, as far as I can tell, the positive reason, who knows what the negative reasons are, is because I don't want more conflict. I'd rather have genuine peace, which is very, very, very hard to obtain. People generally obtain peace by sweeping things under the carpet. I have another chapter in this new book called Don't Hide Things in the Fog. And that's what it concentrates on, is pay attention to your negative emotions. Resentment particularly. It's like, it's so informative. You find out where you're immature. Well, do you want to? Probably not. Who wants to find out that? Or you'll find out who's oppressing you. And maybe then you can learn to stand up for yourself.
So simply, this is why I love this clip, and this is why I love Jordan Peterson. It's for this reason. He doesn't give a shit about if it's going to cause him pain in the moment, because what he wants is ultimately to be at peace. What he wants ultimately is to live a nice life. Now, he had a massive health condition, right? He nearly died. So his perspective on life is, I'm sure it's radically changed. He knows it's finite. He knows he's vulnerable. He knows this is a meat bodysuit, right? And so his perspective changed. So he wants to live a peaceful life. But what he's talking about is the ultimate thing in business and life. It's this one skill that I'm about to tell you. It's pattern recognition. It's pattern recognition in your own behaviors. It's pattern recognition in other people. It's pattern recognition in the market, in business, in marketing, in sales. It's pattern recognition over your team. It's pattern recognition over the next trend. It's pattern recognition of what is aligned with you. This is the number one skill, man. I should do a whole episode just on that thing. But pattern recognition is truly, it's not everything, but it's exceptionally powerful, because then, like he's talking about, that person, if you can walk into a kitchen and there's packets that haven't been there, then there's packets that have been left for 2 years, then there's conflict. And that conflict means that then if we isolated that pattern, we know it's connected to what the relationship. So what's happening, the dynamics of that relationship that are causing someone not to take full responsibility of that, the kitchen, which means the relationship, which means food, which means communion. Do you know what I mean? So when we ultimately understand these patterns inside of ourselves, we can ultimately be the best leader. We can ultimately lead our family. We can lead our tribe, our business. But that's the whole point, right? Why? Because we want to be at peace. Who the hell wants a stressful, chaotic, insane life? Well, some people do. You know what I mean? I don't tend to put myself around them because they're nuts. I was probably nuts. I'm probably a little bit nuts still, a little bit crazy. But if your heart's in the right place and you want to constantly evolve yourself as to be the ultimate and best human being that you can be on this planet for whatever your purpose and reason is, then we've got to be honest. Do you know what I mean? I hope so. Hopefully this helped today. Hopefully you got a lot from this. Maybe you want to listen to this again. Maybe you want to share this with some person who needs to hear all this today. Maybe you just want to reach out and connect with me personally. Up to you. So, crew, that's the end of episode 405. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And make sure that you're heading over to the podcast description, not the notes, the podcast description. Clicking on those links. Make sure that you're getting yourself the ultimate best nootropics in the world to power up your brain. And make sure that you're getting the best training system in the world for peak performance, the 8-Figure Thinker Peak Performance University. Remember, there's a sale on right now, so you best go and get it. So that's what you want to do. So hit those links over. Remember, andymurphy.online for all the latest and the greatest. And find me on social media, Andy Murphy Mindset. You'll probably be able to find me. Probably on all platforms, to be honest. Until then, hit those description, hit those links, and until the next time, you keep kicking ass. Have an amazing week, and much, much love. What else? Oh yeah, one more thing. Why don't you smile for me?
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of the Mindset by Design podcast with your host and NLP expert, Andy Murphy. We'll catch you next time.